Good morning, Dan and Amy. So, Trump was in North Carolina yesterday,
Yes, he was.
and he opined on a number of topics as he is wont to do at his rallies. One was his ongoing appeal to black voters.
Yeah, focusing on the African Americans.
Our African American communities are absolutely in the worst shape that they've ever been in before, ever. You take a look at the inner cities, you get no education, you get no jobs, you get shot walking down the street. They're worse. I mean, honestly, places like Afghanistan are safer than some of our inner cities. And I say to the African American communities, and I think it's resonating, because you see what's happening with my poll numbers with African Americans. They're going like high.
Yes, like
Well,
high.
are they high? I mean, last ABC had reported a month ago that he was polling at 1% among African Americans.
There was an LA USC poll that had him more like at 16.5% this week.
That's a big difference.
Snapshots in time. But there does seem to be some movement, and there have been stories this week about Hillary, receiving a bit of a cool reception in terms of as compared to the reception she needs from black voters, from Latino voters, from millennials,
From
including
women, too.
including in swing states where Trump actually has a much narrower margin in Nevada, for example, among the Latino vote than did Mitt Romney ultimately. So it is interesting that is in part happening. The other thing Trump said yesterday in North Carolina was in response to, and as a preview for, I think, part of what the discussion will be on Monday night in the first debate, a response to what President Obama had to say when he addressed the UN and, by extension, Hillary Clinton and their liberal internationalist perspective on the world. Trump saying this.
Hillary Clinton is the chief emissary for globalism. And I'm not running to be president of the world. I'm running to be president of the United States.
Yeah, you can expect to hear that line again. And for more, you know why I like Juan Williams, Amy? In addition
Why
to
do
his,
you like him? Then I'll tell you why.
in addition
I like
to his affable personality, he's fun to talk to, but because he is a strong proponent of school choice.
him.
Yes, that's why I like him. Why do you like him?
Because I just do. I'm going to
Okay.
keep that
You don't
under
have,
wraps.
Yeah, you don't have to explain. We get it. Juan Williams, Fox News political analyst. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan, it's nice to be liked. Boy, what a nice way to wake up. Thanks.
Yes. Now we're gonna get into tearing you apart. No, I'm just kidding.
There you go.
So the debate on Monday night, is your sense that particularly given the events of the last week, from the terrorist attack to these police involved shootings in Charlotte and Tulsa, that it's going to be law enforcement and immigration dominated?
I'm not clear. They put out the topics this week, and the buckets were so large as to be sort of amorphous, like, what is going on here? But I think national security was one, so I imagine we will get into Hillary Clinton's record as Secretary of State and arguments over whether or not, as Trump argues, she's responsible for ISIS and, like, the attack that took place here in New York this week. So, I imagine that'll come up. But then the other thing was, basically, again, a large bucket about the future of the country or something like that. I don't know what that means. I would guess if I was to try to put myself in the moderator slot, and that's an interesting thing, Trump saying that Lester Holt was a Democrat, and in fact he's a Republican.
Yay, Lester.
What about, I'm sorry?
Yay, Lester.
That I was wondering if, it would focus heavily on economic issues. And, just like in the tape you were playing, Trump has a very dark vision of the economy despite the indicators. Clinton, I think, is going to have to show that she is sensitive to people who still have a strong sense of anxiety about the economy, even as she says the economy is doing better.
So they're not going to have teleprompters. They're not going to be able to have notes at their lecterns. Do you think that this might get ugly, possibly, and that might turn into a little bit of a cat fight?
Well, you know what, Amy, Donald Trump told Bill O'Reilly earlier this week that it's all up to how Hillary treats him and that he will respond in kind. So now this was an interesting thing on two levels. One, he just basically ceded the role of the progenitor or the aggressor to Hillary Clinton. It's up to how she behaves, not up to how he behaves. And I think that he feels, in some sense, like if he takes the initiative, goes on the offensive early, that people will define him in terms of his temperament as not presidential. On the other hand, for Hillary Clinton, she's got to worry that if Trump does bring up her husband or start talking about her emails and the like, that even if she has a proper response, the headlines the next morning will be Trump's Hillary or Trump dumps on Hillary, and that the narrative coming out will be Hillary got beat up by Donald Trump, doesn't know how to handle him.
Well, and it seems a real tightrope that she has to walk then if Trump is going to at least perception-wise take this passive posture, because it seems to me that Hillary's last best argument to make, the case she has to prosecute over the last 50 days of the campaign, is that he's unfit for the presidency. And so it's difficult to make the case that someone is unfit for the presidency and not have responses in kind.
I didn't get that. You mean like if he's standing there and he looks calm, collected, presidential even, then
no,
Hillary has to have a response in kind?
No. What I'm saying is if she prosecutes that case aggressively, then, it's going to bring Trump into, responding in kind. So you're unfit for the presidency. Oh, really? Well, let's talk about fitness for the office. And then the email comes up, and then Libya comes up, and the whole bucket.
Well, that could come up, but I mean that when you're talking about temperament, you're not talking about scandals and controversies. You're talking about, being thin-skinned, his tweets in the middle of the night, some of the awful things that he said. And then I think that's what would focus heavily on the temperament issue, Dan. And the thing about it is that from Hillary's perspective, she would want him to react. I don't know if you've read these stories where they're even talking to the guy who wrote the book Art of the Deal with Trump.
Right.
And they're talking to psychologists, and they're thinking,
they want to know what pushes his buttons.
Watching tapes of the previous GOP primary debates to see what gets him agitated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. But it seems to me here's the struggle she has with that is kind of the underlying substance of the matter. If he stays room temperature, if he's not agitated, then it really puts her in a bit of a trick bag because she has outspent him, 5-1 in terms of retail media. And she's kind of maxed out on his unpopularity. And now he's starting to gain. And so all of the things he said about women and all the other commercials that have been run, it's kind of past post. It's old news. So what's the next best, latest, greatest case she can make for unfitness if those other contentions have kind of gone by the boards?
Well, I think that you don't want to take this risk is the message to the voters that, I think the strength of the Trump campaign is as the disruptor, that people who are dissatisfied with the status quo would say, I don't want another establishment politician. I'm sick of it. I don't even care if Trump screws up some things, but I just want someone who's going to go in there and shake up the old boy system, break the China. And what Clinton has to say, I think, is you're not talking about breaking the China. You're talking about breaking the country, our values, our children, and make the risk unacceptable.
All right. He's Juan Williams, Fox News political analyst. Juan, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan and Amy, I like you too.
Oh, nice.
You know why I like Juan Williams? Because he's personable and I understand him and he explains things perfectly.
Okay,
so
there
that
you
somebody
go.
like me can
Juan,
comprehend.
you just got a quote for your the back of your next book from Amy Jacobson there.
There it is.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Juan.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.